I recently came across Keep in Mind Remastered, something that I wouldn't have picked up myself, but it was part of a bundle of games, and I was like, okay, I'll have a look at this. I've got it, so I'll give it a go. I do like to broaden my horizons outside of RPGs, and I am really glad that I did. It's kind of unsettling, obviously it starts just a couple in bed, and it seems to be that one of them has a drinking problem and various other issues that this drinking problem is probably masking. But then, he's kind of like disturbed in his sleep, goes outside, and there's this creature just growling at him and kind of berating him. And then the actual sort of gameplay element is just going around the town amidst a variety of different screens, meeting up with a cast of more and more peculiar creatures. You've got a creature who's just a big eye on legs. You've got a guy who basically keeps splitting in half. You've got people with big gaping maws and, sort of dripping tendrils and all this kind of thing. And it's very sort of simple style. It's very, sort of minimal in its execution. The soundtrack is just ambient kind of noise. But like with The Last Door, it's got that unsettling characteristic. I realised, partway through, this isn't a horror game. This is, as much as anything, a self-affirmation and self-love game. These different people, or different creatures, that our protagonist meets around the town in this kind of nightmare sort of setting, all come together at the end, and they're all grouped around and say, like, I am your self-doubt, I am your anxieties, I'm this. They're all parts of him that he's trying to shut up with the drink. He's trying to forget that they exist. He's trying to put them away. But he needs to know, he needs to remember, he needs to accept that you can't have one without the other. You can't have the light without the dark. You can't have the good of you without some of the less good. Because those less good elements inform how the good should be. Nobody gets better without making mistakes. You don't learn unless you get things wrong a few times. For the most part, unless you're a savant. But at the end of it, the last thing he has to face when they're all sort of in a circle around him, the last one he has to face is the mirror. Himself. He's faced the individual elements, but really he needs to learn to accept himself. And in doing so, we're taken back to a shot of the bedroom, and he turns and hugs his wife and sort of makes a commitment to change. A commitment to be better. To allow his guilt to make sure he doesn't do something again. To allow his anxiety to make him aware of situations that he should be wary of. To allow the sadness to get feelings of unhappiness out of him. He learns to accept who he is. And for what it is, it's a very simple, very minimal game with very little gameplay really. You're just walking between screens and communicating with these creatures. There's no fighting, there's no leveling up, there's no score system. It is literally just exploration. It has a very powerful message. I often, seek, even unconsciously, deep narratives, deep explorations of the human soul and psyche in my games. I also like things that just allow you to just, pop off a few rounds in a feral ghoul's head, for argument's sake. But I do really enjoy deep stories, deep worlds, and yeah, something like this that just tells you to learn to love yourself, I think everyone should be aware of, even if it's not something you want to experience. Maybe the minimalistic style would put you off, or whatever, or the creatures' designs are a bit uncomfortable for you to look at. But the message is important. So even if you haven't played it, take that message. Whatever flaws you have, they're still a part of you. When people say, I wish I could go back and change X, Y, or Z, you would be very different. You wouldn't be the person making those choices if you had done that. It's a paradox, very much so. But if you learn to accept your flaws, change the ones that you can, make the best version of you. Obviously, I'm not saying just accept who you are, even if you're the most awful person in the world. But acknowledge your flaws, change what you can and what needs changing. But learn to love yourself. I don't think there's any greater lesson that I can really impart. So I'm going to leave this there. I've got a few links below if you're struggling with various issues. I always like to do that on sort of heavier topics, so they are down there. And if you need help, just reach out. You know, if there's no one around, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to take a message. I may not respond straight away, depending on what time zone you're in and what have you. But I would like to help if no one else can. So, until next time, as always, thanks for watching. Love yourself and take care.